Hi, this is Suzanne from Holiday Travel. Thank you for joining us on our first episode of Travel Talk. Today joining me is Paul O'Meara from Globus Vacations. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be a part of this.
Thank you. So Globus Vacations, tell me a little bit about what Globus does, what they're famous for.
Yeah, so Globus is right now the largest tour operator in the world. We have 4 different divisions as a company. We have 2 divisions that specialize in tour operations, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. We have a division that specializes in independent vacations, and we have a river cruise division. And we carry upwards of 500,000 people a year to about 140 different countries.
Wow.
Most of that coming from folks right here in the United States. So we're an international company, about 6,000 employees based in Switzerland. Our U.S. operations are in Denver, and I'm right here in New England.
Great, great.
My job essentially is to work with partners like you and talk travel all day long, so we're in a good job here.
So when someone says motor coach tour, or when I mention motor coach tour, bus tour to someone, I get this face that people say, I don't want to be stuck on a motor coach tour. They think of the old movie, if it's Tuesday, it must be Brussels. All the stereotypical negative feelings of motor coach. What's changed in the past few years?
Yeah, a lot. I actually get that quite a bit. A lot has changed in the last few years. Really, in the last, I would say, 15 or 20 years, the demographic, the type of person that travels on a tour is a lot different than it was in when our parents were traveling in the 50s and 60s. Yeah. There's a lot of younger families traveling now. The trips are a lot shorter than they used to be. Historically, tours, 50s, 60s, 70s were 25, 30, 35, 40 days where you got to see a number of countries. And now it's a little more specific, country or regional specific.
Yeah.
And so it's attracted a whole new group of people that, don't know anything about the movie, but just want to experience a number of different countries or destinations or people or regions and cuisine without having to worry about who's going to drive, without having to worry about making dinner reservations or researching just the right hotel in the right part of a given area.
Yeah.
That's really what touring is great at. It's organizing all of the little details so that the average person can just focus on having a great time on their trip. And that has really, that's gotten to a whole new group, a whole new demographic of people that now never thought of touring that way. They always thought of it as, their parents and grandparents kind of staring out the window of a bus as it drives along a highway and trying to get pictures. That is not what touring now is about tasting, about seeing, about doing, and the younger crowd likes that.
So when you say younger crowd, what's the average age? Is there a ballpark?
Yeah, so average age for touring historically has been in the 60s. Touring was, like I said, historically.
After you retired, you got the money, you got the time.
Exactly right, a lot of time and a decent amount of money and discretionary income to travel. Nowadays, it's a little bit different. Our average, with our company, our average tour is just over 50 years old.
Wow!
So it's a lot of a younger audience. With me, I'm 44. I have a wife and a 15-year-old daughter, and we are a typical person or family that enjoys touring now. We want to see more places. We want to taste. We want to hike. We want to meet the locals. The issue is we don't have a lot of time to plan that.
Right.
Our job is as a company, is to make sure that that we do all the planning so that folks that travel with us and with you don't have to.
Good. Yeah. Good. So planning as far as where to go, what to see, how long to go for. You guys travel all over the world. You're not just a United States company.
Yep.
What's your most popular destination? Do you have one?
As a company, we have a lot of popular destinations. I have my own personal favorites, but we'll talk about that later, I guess. So as a company, with what's happening in the world today, there's been a lot of kind of different ideas on where people want to travel.
Right.
Historically, as a company that like us that's based in Europe, Europe has been the destination that most people go and still is.
Right.
As a company, our numbers are well above 50% of the people that tour with our company actually tour in Europe.
Yeah.
And there's so much to see and do in Europe, obviously.
Is,
we could do a whole show just on Europe,
Yeah.
And maybe we will. But with us, it really has come back to seeing what's a little closer to home. And this year, 2016, and even going into 2017, we've seen a little bit of a shift in more travel within the United States.
Really? Wow.
National parks
the 100th
anniversary
Yep.
this year, so that's
Yep.
been a huge piece
Yep.
Of what we're seeing in terms
Right.
of the change in destinations, and a lot happening in places like Cuba. You know, we were one of the original companies to sell Cuba, so we have a whole program set up, and now, you know, every night you turn on the news and you see discussions about how people can just hop on a plane and go to Cuba, which you and I both know isn't the case.
Right. So not to go off on a tangent, but Cuba, you can't just go and sit on the beach and drink Mai Tais.
Yeah, unless you're a Canadian citizen.
Okay. All
yeah.
right. So
if you're a Canadian citizen, then you can do whatever you like.
Right.
They don't have the same issues that we have as U.S. citizens. As
Yeah.
a U.S. citizen, even though you've heard different stories on the news, and I'm sure you get calls all the time in your office about people that say, I heard they're doing flights to Havana from Boston.
Yeah.
It isn't that simple yet.
Mm-hmm.
The discussion now, I know we have it a lot, is it may very well, what happens with Cuba travel programs may very well depend on who gets elected in November. You know, Republican Party generally seems to be a little bit more towards kind of shutting down the efforts. And Democrats are a little bit different. They've, especially with Obama in office, have seemed to jump a little bit more on the reciprocity of citizens and things like that. And a few great things have happened. But it seems to, at least in my opinion, it seems like we're a fair way away from, you know, you or
Sitting
I getting on a plane in Boston and going and sitting on Veradero Beach with a margarita in our hand.
It still has to be a human, people-to-people type tour.
Yeah. So the U.S. Department of the Treasury, Office of Foreign Assets Control, kind of has specified that if you're a U.S. citizen, there's 12 groups of people that can legally travel to Cuba. Doctors, humanitarians, things like that.
Right.
But one of them is an educational charter.
Okay.
And under the educational charter, they have what's called people-to-people travel programs.
Yeah.
So that's what you and I offer to clients. The people-to-people travel programs essentially are a tour that requires that you are involved and immersed within the local society, with the local people, eating the local food, visiting the local establishments. And that's a requirement of travel to Cuba at this time.
Yeah.
So it essentially means that you have this great planned out, well thought out, you know, value-oriented tour where you're going to meet a ton of locals and eat a lot of food and see a lot of what Cuba is all about now.
Culture.
But you're going to do it in a way that you don't really have to plan much on your own.
Right. Yeah.
So as it stands now,
Yeah.
you have to take a tour under that people-to-people program legally. That may change, it may not, but it's been extremely popular. You know, Cuba is, it's only going to get bigger, and really, and we're talking about this, we've talked about this a few times about the infrastructure. I mean, they're going to have an infrastructure problem, I think. Cuba has a lot of work to do to get to a level where most U.S. travelers will be comfortable, and they're not there yet.
The basics.
They're not there yet. Yeah, with the basics. Things like accepting U.S. credit cards, which they don't do. Having reliable Wi-Fi, which they don't do. Having a class of hotel that most U.S. citizens are really like and are comfortable with. There are so few of those, and the ones that there are sold out years in advance right now. So there's a lot of work to do still in Cuba, but I can't wait to
experience
be able to
it.
experience it the way that it is now. So soon.
Yeah. So we got off onto Cuba, but we were talking about national parks. This, as you mentioned, is the 100-year anniversary of national parks. I've had customers that have come in that wanted to go, and it's sold out. They wanted to get a hotel. They're trying to plan a trip on their own. We're going to be here today, there tomorrow, whatever. The hotels are sold out. They do a tour, they don't have to worry about it.
Right.
You guys have blocked the space, you have a tour. Tell us a little bit about the most popular national park tours.
Yeah, that's good. And this actually will widen out, I think, to a longer discussion about special events in different parts of the world where a tour company actually has has block space and block restaurant space and other tour components years before most people even know that there's an event happening.
Yeah.
So you're not fighting with the individuals who just decide to
get up and drive.
get up and try to drive to a national park. But
Yeah.
In the United States, I mean, it's really the ones that most people hear about. Quite a bit of traffic in the Grand Canyon,
Yeah.
Yellowstone, Yosemite.
Yeah.
My favorite, personally, I have two favorites. One is here in New England, Acadia National Park, which I
in
love.
Maine. Yep.
And most of us here in New England can drive to in
Right.
a few hours, and to stay up in Bar Harbor and experience that is
Yeah.
fantastic. But my favorite national park in the U.S. is Glacier National Park in Montana.
I've never been.
Yeah, it's one of those places, especially as a New Englander, it's one
Yeah.
of those places that you wouldn't normally ever get to see unless you go there. It's in Montana and extends into southern Alberta
Yeah.
in Canada. There's a rail line. Amtrak actually runs a rail line almost right through the park.
Oh, wow.
So you have the ability to get right up almost in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And the beauty of Glacier National Park is it was named for some famous glaciers that are there.
Yeah.
And National Geographic and a few government organizations have actually said that within the next 15 or 20 years, the glaciers that are actually in Glacier National Park,
Yeah.
that the park was named after, won't actually be there anymore.
They've melted.
Yeah, so there's kind of this
Yeah.
urgency for most people to see it,
Yeah.
and to be up there in Montana
Yeah.
and not have really anything else around. And
Right.
they have these great kind of mini buses. They call them Red Jammer buses that are completely open on the top, and they're run by these park guides that have been there for 30, 40, 50 years. And they drive through the park, and because there's no roof, they stop at pretty much every corner.
Oh, wow.
And people just pop up out of the roof
Okay.
and start taking pictures.
Yeah.
It's just such a great, and I love it for a whole bunch of reasons.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to get space in a place like Glacier because the season is so
It's 'cause
short.
it's seasonal. It's what?
Very
Memorial
seasonal.
Day to Labor Day,
Yeah,
give or take.
It actually, they got almost a foot of snow recently.
No way.
So
Oh, wow.
and
so when we
we're
had
ta-
90 degrees, they were having snow?
Yes, they were having snow. Generally, their season runs early mid-June to about early mid-September.
Yeah.
So it's such a limited time period.
Right.
And most of what people want to see in a place like Glacier is up in the mountains, which those roads are completely shut off once the snow starts
Okay.
falling. It's impossible to try to. We
Yeah.
think we have issues around here with plowing. I
Yeah.
think 14 or 15 feet of snow in the month of October makes for a pretty difficult time trying to plow. So I really love Glacier, but
Yeah.
you really can't go wrong with any national park.
Yeah.
They're just so popular, and
Yeah.
and Teddy Roosevelt did a pretty good job 100 years ago.
Yeah,
I
he
think
did.
putting them
Yeah.
in play,
Yeah.
and so that kind of
Yeah.
it really has brought a whole new group of
Right.
people that really never thought touring was a good option for them.
Exactly.
Now all of a sudden you can see 3, 4, 5 national parks in a week or 10
10
days,
days, yeah.
and have your hotels and your meals
You're not
and
driving,
your
you're not
sightseeing
fighting
taken care
traffic,
of.
and you're not,
Absolutely, and you have a fantastic. I mean, the best part about touring, at least from my perspective, is that you have this expert, this tour director, who is essentially born, raised, and is working in the part of the world or part of the country
Yeah.
where you're traveling.
Right.
So there's nobody that knows more about a given subject. A lot of the tour directors now working around the world are former teachers, former government officials,
Yeah.
artists, just
Yeah.
fantastic,
Yeah.
unbelievable wealth of
Right.
unbelievably knowledgeable people.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a great experience
Yeah.
for people that have a time to take advantage of that.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
I was just on an Italy tour back in October, a Globus tour, and our guide, her prior job was a art historian. And so we would be going into these museums, or she would just be talking as we're driving along, and the knowledge that she had,
Yeah.
it was so hard to not to comprehend, but to remember everything, because you say, oh, that's a good point, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And she was just so knowledgeable because that was her background.
Yeah, the beauty of it too
Yeah.
with the tour directors is that they're not running off of a script.
Exactly,
They live it.
yeah.
They live
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
a recent tour I did was in Ireland, and we actually did a part of the tour was walking around Trinity College, and
Yeah.
Trinity College is very similar. You've been
Yeah.
there now, but Trinity College is very similar to kind of Harvard University here. Like
Right.
once you get, it's in the middle of the city, but once you get onto the campus, it's just kind of this bastion
own
of kind of
oasis.
quietness,
Yeah.
oasis, right?
Yeah.
So we're walking through and we're hearing the stories from our tour director, and he told us who had gone to Trinity College, and it was just a great experience.
Yeah.
And at the end, I actually asked him, what is your history with the university? And he was a professor there and the assistant dean there for about a dozen years. And here he is as our tour director. You can read all the guidebooks you want.
Yeah.
You can watch all the TV programs you want, but in the end, to have a personal connection like that from an expert like that on the tour director side is fantastic. And that's really, again, one of the beauties of touring, is that you have these tour directors who are with you the entire time.
Right.
They are your friend on the ground for these tours, whether you're in Cuba, whether you're in Australia or Europe or Asia. And a quick funny little anecdote about Cuba. As a company, we hire the very best tour directors, but one of our best tour directors for Cuba actually lives in the Boston area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've had
Is she
the
or he
chance
Cuban,
to meet her.
or they?
She was born in Cuba
Okay.
and came here with relatives and ended up settling in the Boston area. And now she's one of the foremost experts, one of the foremost tour directors for Cuba.
Wow.
And we just happen to be lucky enough to have her on our team leading these tours. So it's a really small world when you see this, to have tour directors traveling all over the world and to have one of the very best right up here in the Boston area selling Cuba. So.
And the great thing with Globus is that the tour director is the tour director. He or she's not the bus driver.
Right.
They're not a combo. They're not trying to figure out how to get around Sturo Drive, or how to get up the mountain path.
Like the students moving in,
exactly,
right? Yeah, they're not going to upend the top half of the bus when they disregard the signs
exactly.
on Sturo Drive.
While they're trying to tell you about, look out the right-hand side of the window, there's, whatever. So that's a great idea or great promotion with it.
It just creates kind of a symmetry of the trip. You really, when you talk about touring, it all comes back to you get the most value for your money, and you really don't have to plan. Your job as a person who's on a tour is to show up and to enjoy, and to learn and to take all of this in. Your vacation shouldn't be about making dinner reservations. Or wondering who's going to drive the next day, or do I have enough money for gas or tolls, and if I do have enough money, do I have enough money in the right currency of the country that we're in? What if I get lost? I can't use my data on my phone because who knows how much that's going to cost me. So it's all those little things that most people think of, but it doesn't really hit them that a tour would have been a much better option until they actually see it on their own. And we've seen that over the last few years. I mean, just like we opened the show with, we talked a little bit about kind of the changing demographic of the people who are taking tours. And it really, we see a number of younger families, multi-generational groups, where we have, a daughter and a son and their parents and their parents, and all of a sudden it's a group of 10 or 12. You don't want to be trying to manage how people are going to get around a city like Paris with 10 or 12 people. You just don't. A tour is such a better option for a case like that. And price-wise, it generally, common knowledge would kind of dictate that if you have somebody else do all the work for you, it's going to cost more money.
Right.
And that's not the way it works. The cost generally is the same or lower if you do a tour because we're doing volume.
You're getting the group discount
as companies, it's exactly right. Everybody gets the group discount.
Exactly.
That's exactly how it works with touring, because on a given tour we're bringing, 20, 25, 30 people into a restaurant for dinner. We're going to get, if we do that 10, 12, 15, 18 times a year in a city like Rome, we're going to get a better price for everybody. They're going to have a better experience. You're going to experience it with people from your neighborhood or your country. And it's a great option.
Generational. I did a Globus tour with my mom and my grandmother. And Grandma, when we did it, she was probably in her late 70s. We went to Italy. She was from Italy. She spoke Italian, but didn't read or write it, but could understand. So she conversed with the guide. But by the time we were 2 days into the tour, everybody was calling her Grandma. And everybody was watching out for her. So it wasn't like it was just Mom and I watching out for my grandmother. Everybody kind of pitched in and says, okay, slow down, Grandma's got to catch up, or where's Grandma? Everybody just was helping everybody. And it's kind of like the lifeboat theory, that you're in a souvenir store and all of a sudden I see you, you're on our bus, you're a familiar face. I just met you 2 days ago, but you're a very familiar face.
A funny story with that, and my daughter, and we went when we did the Ireland trip a couple of years ago. We've always traveled very well together.
Yeah.
She's gone to a few different countries now. We traveled quite a bit, but we were on about our third or maybe fourth day in Ireland. We were there for about 9 days with some family members, and we were in a restaurant. And it might have been the third day, and she kind of looks over at my wife and I and says, "Do I have to sit with you guys?" And that was the end of that.
Yeah.
You know, that was, she actually sat with what we knew in the very beginning, but there was a JetBlue pilot who had actually brought his wife with him,
Yeah.
and the two of them were on the tour, and Emma had taken a liking, and
Yeah.
They got into discussion about, flying and all that, but
Yeah.
she actually sat
Yeah.
with them at dinner time.
Yeah.
And, it's something like that would never happen if the three of us just went to
No.
a restaurant in the middle of Ireland.
Exactly.
But we were with a
Yeah.
group of 20, I think our group was about 31, 32 people, and she was comfortable in the group. We were all comfortable in the group.
Right.
We had a
Yeah.
grandma, we had a nana on the
Yeah.
trip,
Yeah.
We had a couple of school teachers, we
Yeah.
had a family from the Chicago area, if I remember correctly, who had a daughter that was similar to Emma's age.
Yeah.
So it was just a great experience,
Yeah.
and it's kind of, people enjoy traveling
Yeah.
in groups, in small groups.
And not have to worry,
It does,
yeah.
and especially really, in this day
Yeah.
and age where there's so much uncertainty about
Right.
what's happening in different parts of the world,
Yeah.
to travel with a group of 30 or 40 people from the United
Yeah.
States, including some that might be from your own neighborhood or city, is
Right.
kind of a comfort factor.
And the great thing with Globus is everybody on the bus is English speaking.
Yes.
So it's not as if you're going to be riding down the road and they're going to announce whatever it is in Spanish,
Correct.
Italian, French, and then English, and meanwhile it's 2 miles back.
Yep.
So it's Americans, it's
There's
Canadians,
6 countries
Aussies.
essentially. Anybody
Okay.
that speaks English. So you have
Yeah.
about 80% of our business comes from the United States
Yeah.
and Canada, and then the other is a mixture of Irish, British, Australian, New Zealand, South African.
Yeah.
Anybody that speaks English as their first language. All of our tours are only in English.
Yeah.
So it lends for a better atmosphere.
Yeah,
our
it's-
staff is all speaks English.
Yeah.
A lot of our tour directors, especially in Europe, English is like one of 6 languages.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
They speak. It's
They're talking to you
unbelievable.
in English,
I can
and they-
barely master this language, and,
Right.
and they know 6.
And they turn to speak to the bus driver in French,
Yep.
and then meanwhile someone's walking by in Italian asking them, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's just flabbergasting.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the tours too, is that
Yeah.
the tour directors they really have to be experts in given areas, just because they never know if our tour is covering 4 or 5 different countries. They
Right.
never know when they're going to have to speak French,
Exactly.
or Dutch,
Yeah.
or German, or Austrian.
Yeah.
So it's really there's a lot of different
Yeah.
variables that go into being a tour director,
Mm-hmm.
and I always say, one of my comments to my friends and relatives and people I talk to in the business is, the best tour director is the one who you have spent a week with and would never know that there was anything even remotely stressful about what they do.
Exactly,
Because
yeah.
the reality of it is that everything is completely stressful behind the
Right,
scenes, because
yeah.
they're managing hotel stays and baggage
And dinners
drops and
and-
dinners and
yeah.
sightseeing.
And someone's lost, or someone's late, or someone
Absolutely.
hurt their foot,
Yeah.
and
Yep. So
someone
they're
overslept.
They're
Yeah.
invaluable,
Yeah.
to the entire experience, and the ability to speak seems like everybody in Europe speaks 4 or 5 languages
Yeah.
anyway.
And
but
they make or break the trip.
Yep,
They are.
absolutely.
I mean, I've never had a bad escort or a bad guide, so I can't say. But
Yeah.
I can imagine if I did, then the trip would be awful, because they're the ringleader.
They
They're
are.
the ones that's coordinated everything.
Yep, they are. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're fantastic.
Yeah.
So your next trip,
Next trip, we're doing Budapest, Vienna, Prague.
Yeah.
Yep. So
those
that's
are,
a
I've been
Globus.
to Prague.
Yeah.
Not been to Budapest or Vienna.
Yeah.
Soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's going to
Yeah.
be fun. Yeah, I can't wait
Yeah.
to hear all about that.
Yeah. Looking forward to
Yeah,
it.
those have
Yeah.
been really those 3 cities specifically, kind of the
Yeah.
Central Europe capitals,
Yeah.
have been really, really, really popular now.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Good.
going to grow, those
Yeah.
3 cities. There have been so many people who have been to Rome and Paris and London.
Yeah. They're looking for something new and different.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Rome, as I mentioned, I was on one of your Italy tours back in October, and I tell this story to so many people of the benefits of doing a tour. We were day 2 in Rome, and we're going to be going to the Vatican Sistine Chapel. And the guide the night before said, okay, I know it's your vacation, but you got to be up early the next morning. You got to be up early tomorrow morning. We're on the bus at 7:30. and we're all groaning, thinking, oh, breakfast was at like 6:30, on the bus at 7:30, and people saying, I'm on vacation, I don't want to get up that early, and the guide would say, it's going to be worth your while, trust me, we need to be on the bus at 7:30. So we're all trooping out at 7:30, we get on the bus, and we go over to the Vatican, and as we pull in, there's a line that's got to be 200 people in line. And now it's about 7:45, 20 minutes, 7:45 or so. The Vatican opens up at 9 a.m. They're in line already to get into the Vatican. Okay, an hour and a half, a good hour and a half that's already 200 people long. We pull up, we all get off the bus, we go in a separate entrance, and we're in 3 minutes flat.
Yeah.
And I tell people, if you were staying in Rome at a hotel, first of all, would you have known you had to be there an hour and a half and that you were number 198 in line? Yeah. Okay, and we got in, we had our Whisperer headphones, and we went through, and we were out of there in a couple of hours. Yeah. Meanwhile, these poor people that were still in line were...
Again, it's the value of, it's the value of having other people do the planning for you. I can tell you the first time I went to Rome, we had no idea about what you just said. None. Yeah. We had absolutely no idea. So we had to go and make sure that we were there early enough, and then we saw what you experienced. We saw the tour coming right in, and we were a little upset because we weren't on a tour. We were independent. Yeah. So I think that's just another great selling point of having a tour and a company like us do all of the planning for you.
Yeah.
So.
And our guide knew that if we weren't there by, say, 10 minutes to 8, we would have lost our slot.
Right. Yep.
So that's why she was very emphatic. We need to be on the bus, because if there's other buses coming in, and we'd be back of the bus, literally.
Yeah.
So, but the Whisperer headsets, those are fabulous.
Yeah.
Is Globus use them for all of their tours, or explain a little bit about what they are?
So years ago, I'd say within the last 15 years, it was always the case when you were on a tour where you'd follow around the guy with the umbrella.
Exactly.
Right? You'd have a red
flag,
umbrella or a flag.
Yeah, exactly.
And there'd be 500 different groups trying to follow 500 different flags, and that was kind of the way you did it.
And they're yelling over, red group!
That's right, holding the big number up in the air. The beauty of technology is that it's gotten to a point now where we have on all of our tours all throughout the world these headsets, and it's attached to a wireless microphone, and that microphone goes on the chest of the local guide or the tour director, depending on where we are in the world.
Yeah.
And that person speaks, and you do not have to be really, really close to that person.
Right.
So it's pretty interesting to make sure that everybody can hear what they need to hear, but they don't feel like they need to be right on the back of the tour guide or the tour director.
And the guides aren't yelling over each other, trying to...
Absolutely not. It's fantastic. And I'll tell you, it was clear as day to me. This October, I was in France, and we were at Versailles, Palace of Versailles, outside of Paris. And it's just such a huge place. So many people, thousands and thousands of people a day.
Yeah.
And you're outside, it's a little manageable because the grounds are huge. Inside, not so much.
Right.
So we needed to kind of follow along the way, and we didn't have the flags and the umbrellas up in the air. And it's just such a great experience. It makes for a very easy, nice to follow the tour director in that way. So.
Yeah, those are fabulous.
Yep. Yeah.
So what's new and exciting for Globus? Where's the next big destination besides Cuba? Do they have any?
Yeah.
Australia? You guys do Australia?
Cuba's a big one, yeah. We're selling pretty much the world now, 140 plus countries. So Australia's become huge. Africa's become huge.
Africa? What part of it?
Yeah.
Safaris?
We do a lot of private safaris in Africa.
Really?
So it's become, especially Kenya and Tanzania, South Africa's become huge now. With the way that the South African dollar has kind of plummeted over the last few years.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great options, but really touring is just, no matter where you do it in the world, touring is really, don't overlook touring. It's a great way to see the world.
And the motor coaches, they're all state-of-the-art. They've all got Wi-Fi, bathrooms on board.
They do indeed.
They hold 50 people, give or take.
About 40 people.
Okay.
Well, 44 people.
All right,
Yep.
Yeah, so it's not your old school bus rattling around down the dirt roads of wherever.
No, certainly is not anymore.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate
welcome.
you joining me today in my first episode of Travel Talk.
Yeah.
And as you can see, there's a lot going on in the travel world. Please stay tuned to other episodes of Travel Talk. I'm Suzanne from Holiday Travel, and thank you for joining us today.